Random, unintentional thinking, like what you do when your mind wanders, happens in a different part of the brain than intentional thoughts, and too much mind wandering is unfavorable towards you. It makes you more anxious, it creates false scenarios, and overall it just makes you feel unhappy. This is how it works. The part of your brain that is responsible for mind wandering is called the default mode network. It's actually several different brain structures in the lower part of your brain that all communicate with each other to create a network, sort of like a group chat. When you're not actively thinking about something, your brain's default state is to thinking about things from your past and some things from your future. And letting your mind wander in this way is called stimulus-independent thought. It's like leaving your television on or autoplay on YouTube running in the background. You're not really engaged or focused, but it still fills up that mental space. When you focus on something, your default mode turns off while your mind processes the intentional thoughts. And this is going to happen back and forth throughout the day. If you have a lot of anxiety, it means you have an overactive default mode. Most of the things you think of aren't positive, creative, or productive, or helpful when it comes to problem solving. Instead, you're going to be more self-critical and judgmental. And this is the mechanism behind rumination and intrusive thoughts. What's rumination? It's a deeper considered thought about something. Now, some rumination is intentional and you can purposely go over things repeatedly in your mind, but it's usually negative. And where do you get your negative material from exactly? From your default mode. Like, you could be busy doing something, and the moment you're not mentally occupied, your brain says, yo, remember that one time that girl betrayed you? Wasn't that some bullshit? Yeah, that was petty, and now I can't stand her. Then your phone rings and interrupts that thinking, but when your phone call is over, your mind reverts back to that default mode and your mind says, yeah, they were really on one for that. And there you go, back on that same pattern. Intrusive thoughts work a little bit differently. They can still be triggered by the default mode, but they have a more quality of being forced upon you. With rumination, it's sort of like having a person over your shoulder instigating you, saying, yo, that girl had you fucked up. But the intrusive thoughts are like, yo, that woman bamboozled you. What are you gonna do about it? And not everyone gets intrusive thoughts. We tend to see them triggered by traumatic memories or when someone has OCD. Research on the default network suggested 47% of people spend their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're doing, and this mind wandering typically makes them unhappy. As I said earlier, some people are more predisposed of having an overactive default mode network, whether it be in this form of negative ruminations or intrusive thoughts. But the good news is, your default mode network responds to neuroplasticity, which is the ability of neural networks in the brain to change through growth and reorganization. It is when the brain is rewired to function in some way that differs from how it was initially functioning. So that means you can rewire your brain to improve your mental experiences. Think of your nerves in your brain as a complex electrical circuit where the wires and nerves all link together. In an electrical circuit, you need the wires to connect securely to each other in order to move the signals along the path. Anxiety, depression, and inflammation weakens these nerve connections in the part of the brain that override the default network. So what improves neuroplasticity in the parts of the brain that can keep your default mode in check? Believe it or not, your diet. Things like magnesium, meditation, or intermittent fasting all improve neuroplasticity and gets control over your emotions and thoughts and keeps that default mode turned off. And when you think about it, drifting off into that default mode thinking is the opposite of being mindful and present. Meditation is like engaging in a fitness program or going to the gym every day, but for your brain. Learning to control what you're thinking about builds your mental strength that protects you against needless anxiety and depressive ruminations. And it's going to take work to keep your mind focused on something in the present, and if you're not in the habit of meditation, a simple way to get you started is called the body scan. All you gotta do is systematically focus on a part of your body, like you could start at your feet and work your way up. When you do it, engage in all your senses and observations. For example, if you start with your feet and take notice how they feel. Is anything touching them? Are they chilling on the floor? And if you don't do this enough, chances are your mind will wander, and when it does, you just bring your attention back to the body part you are currently focusing on. You don't want to fly through this, but you also don't need to take a long time either. Just do it as much as you deem necessary. The exercise strengthens intentional control, which helps you focus and appreciate what's presently happening. And research suggests people who spend more time in the present have less anxiety and overall more satisfaction out of life. One other thing that reduces default mode activity is psychedelics. Psychedelics are a type of drug that generate an altered mental state and hallucinogenic experience, if you didn't already know that. They were also at one point in time in the 60s and 70s used to assist with psychotherapy before they were eventually banned from legal use, and currently only ketamine is FDA approved for medical purposes. In psychiatry, ketamine is used for treatment-resistant depression, but currently scientists are studying things like MDMA, shrooms, mescaline, which comes from the peyote cactus, LSD, and DMT, which is the active ingredient in ayahuasca. MDMA and psilocybin are the closest things to coming to market when it comes to FDA-approved drugs, and it's already being implemented in places like Oregon and Colorado. MDMA is already in use for therapy for PTSD, and this is why psychedelics are making such a comeback. Clinical trials have shown that these substances treat mental disorders far more effectively than prescription drugs in like 1 or 2 doses. And also, many people in the studies reported that the drugs changed their life perspective and helped them feel more connected to others, and their internalized negativity was purged and stayed that way for months afterwards. What is this wizardry at play? Researchers believe it has to do with them changing your default mode and decreasing that rumination. It's like resetting your system back to default factory settings, and if you don't want to alter it with psychedelics, there's always meditation. Anyways, if you liked this video and found it helpful, give me a like, give me a subscribe, keep your head up, and I'll see y'all later.